Maraming salamat. Good morning to all. Magandang umaga. Mayang buntag sa mga Bisaya o taga Mindanao. Of course, the Department of Education is one with 99. We fully support the government's tax reform for acceleration and inclusion. The intended main beneficiaries of the expected net revenue gains from this comprehensive tax reform, infrastructure, education, health, and social protection are critical sectors in facilitating sustained growth and development that is inclusive. Now, the high priority, kaya siguro last ako because our department is the biggest spender of all. The high priority given to education is not just a matter of policy. All of us know that it is a matter of law. And it is also a matter of the Constitution itself. The Constitution mandates the state to protect and promote the right of every citizen to quality education that is accessible to all. So, even before nag-uso-uso yung education for all, no one left behind, our Constitution already specifically mandates that. DepEd is the agency tasked with fulfilling the state obligation to establish and maintain a system of free public education in the elementary and high school levels. As a rule, this Constitution directs the state to assign the highest budget priority to education. We fought for this as a veteran from civil society, as a veteran of marches and placard wavings in front of the Department of Education, Department of Finance, the World Bank. We have always been fighting for giving education the highest priority in budgetary allocation because during the martial law, it was military which got the highest budgetary allocation. And at this time, what are the cost drivers for the education sector that have to be met in the coming years? The first cost driver is the sheer size of the population that we serve for basic education, which is guaranteed in the Constitution. For example, for the just concluded school year of 2016 and 2017, we had 24.9 million learners from kindergarten to senior high school. Of this, 21.5 million learners was accounted for by the public school system through 53,043 schools all over the country, taught by 742,670 public school teachers. For this school year alone, we are anticipating more than 27 million learners and still counting. We started classes on June 5 and we are still getting enrollees and the final numbers will come out by the end of July. And the total number of learners is expected to grow to about 28 million by 2022. Aside from the learners that we cater to through formal basic education, which includes kindergarten and senior high school, the present administration is determined to reach out to out-of-school youth. In spite of all our efforts, still there are those who educators say fall through the cracks and somehow don't make it to our formal education system. And the major reason for this is poverty, distance, early marriages, and so on. And so this administration under President Duterte is expanding and intensifying the alternative learning system for those who are not in the formal system itself. And this needs also, of course, additional funding for which we are thankful to the DBM, particularly for this year. So it's intensification of the alternative learning system, or ALS. The second cost driver, which is really pushing our budget and pushing the Department of Finance, hopefully to greater efforts, is our commitment to upgrade the quality of education. Constitution does not say education for all. Constitution says quality education. And upgrading education quality requires that we improve our instruction ratios, such as classroom to students, teachers to students, to reach ideal levels. We're also committed to provide adequate facilities, including water and sanitation, internet access, computers. We have to have computer classrooms at the elementary level, laboratories, libraries. One of our major projects for this administration is that every school has to have a library. A feature in educational institutions which we in this room always take for granted, that there is a library. No, not all schools have libraries. Not many schools have libraries. The improvement also in the capability of our teachers through in-service training. We have established our own educators academy, and professional development requires also increasing budget allocation. The strategies, techniques, and the ways of teaching have been moving very, very fast. And it is a challenge to the Department of Education to catch up with changes in technology, in society, in culture, and the way we perceive our own selves as well as the rest of the world. I constantly remind my teachers and our policy makers whenever we meet. And I quote from the President of Peru, who said, "By the time your learners graduate from high school, all that you have taught them will have been passé. All that you have taught them will have been relevant." So we should not only teach them the basics, the multiplication tables, the formulae. We have to teach them to be courageous. We have to teach them to be creative. We have to teach them to accept change, to raise questions, and find solutions. And this requires a different way of approaching teaching methodology, and thus teaching methods have to be continually reviewed, because as I was saying, what we will teach our learners may not necessarily be useful by the time they graduate. The third cost driver is, of course, you are aware of our K-12 program. During my time, which was very long ago, as an elementary student, we started at grade 1. Now, free education includes kindergarten. Kindergarten is mandated for all of our learners. So we have kindergarten and 2 more years of senior high school, all free. And this is why the required inputs for the Department of Education are that much larger. And also, we have different tracks for senior high school. The TechVoc track, technical vocational track, this year, the past year I mean, 39% of our 1.4 million enrollees chose technical vocational, 60% for academic program. Now, the TechVoc track, which we introduced in senior high school, needs very much larger investments in tools, in equipment, and in training materials, because we anticipate that our graduates of TechVoc may decide to enter the world of work upon graduation from high school. Fourthly, climate change and disasters are proving to be a new set of cost drivers for education. Education always suffers each time there is a disaster, whether it is natural, whether it's political, or whatever. We were visited by more calamities with greater strength every year, jacking up the cost for rehabilitation and reconstruction, as well as for building school infrastructure with improved resiliency. And these have increased the cost of education. In addition to building new classrooms, we have to rehabilitate, we have to rebuild, we have to refit, and so on, all our laboratories each time there is a disaster. Fifthly, for the school year 2017-2018, the Marawi siege has exacted a horrendous toll on public resources, particularly education. As of June 30, end of June, 16,472 Marawi children have already evacuated to all the regions of the country. We have Marawi evacuees in Region 1, in Batak, in Lawag, in Baguio, in Central Luzon, in the Visayas, and of course, the other provinces of Mindanao. And we have to make room for them, to welcome them, and to integrate them as fully as we can into our educational system. They need not only temporary learning spaces, but also furniture. Because of our procurement system, we cannot procure desks immediately for them. So our partners from the business sector, from the churches, are contributing plastic school desks and furniture, books and laboratory equipment. Many are volunteering to donate backpacks, but we specify what should be inside the backpack, aside from, of course, the identity of the donors. And it will cost us 800 million to rebuild at least 15 schools in Marawi, which as of now we have identified as bombed, burned, and looted. And these are just the public schools. It does not include the private schools, particularly, for example, Dansalan College, which was the first to be bombed. If we assume that many, if not all, of the 132 schools in Marawi were damaged to a greater or to a lesser extent, our estimate is that it will cost us 2.3 billion. That's why I'm trying to be as charming as possible to Ben. But I don't know if 76-year-olds are still charming. Now, the challenge for us, government has been very understanding of the needs of education. We cannot complain. The challenge in the Department of Education is not only to campaign for more funds because there is no end to the requirements of education. The expectations for education are very, very high. If something goes wrong with elections, people complain, what are we teaching our children? If criminality goes up, what is the Department of Education teaching the young? Everything is blamed on education, but everything is also poured on education in terms of its needs. The challenge for us is full utilization of what the government has allotted to us. Full utilization of the budget, and this is where we are reorganizing. We are strengthening our organizational setup. We are trying to push our officials to take greater risks and to speed up the utilization of the budget which has been allotted to us by mandate of the Constitution and with the support of all of you and all the Filipino people. The final challenge, of course, is accountability, because at the end of the year, we who receive the largest part of the budget have to account for every single centavo. So we approach in the Department of Education the tax reform for acceleration and inclusion as a package. We know that on the revenue side, the government will meet the additional expenditure requirements, not by simply identifying new taxes, but by taking the opportunity to institute a comprehensive reform. I have seen comprehensive tax reforms come, I will not say go, but come and are followed by other additional efforts. When I was very young, as a child, I always thought that government was like God. God provided everything, schools, books, etc. It never occurred to me that it takes money to provide all these things. It was only when I went to university that we were taught, and it was pounded into our heads again and again and again, that taxes are the lifeblood of any country, any society which has ambitions to be developed. And this we have to continually recognize. And so these requirements will have to be met, especially those from education. And on the expenditure side, the package has put out not only infrastructure, because napaka-dramatic ng infrastructure slogan, build, build, build. But we are building for the people. We are building schoolhouses. We are building classrooms. We are building laboratories for the children, for the learners, for our future. So people are at the center of this package. And government is committed to finance the investment requirements of education over the medium term. Taken together, it is our view that this reform program is clearly pro-poor and pro-development. I have just arrived from a meeting convened by the President of the United Nations General Assembly on education, and ministers of education were invited. And a major concern was financing SDG, which is the goal on education. And I was very proud, and people were very impressed when I reported that, because it was beginning to sound like a mantra. Governments were always reminded, spend, spend, spend for education. And my answer is that in the Philippines, that is already provided for in the Constitution. The highest level of spending is for education. And as I said earlier, the challenge is utilization and accountability. And we hope to keep this promise if you also promise to pay your taxes. Thank you very much.